Hey, what is going on guys? RVZ Stealth here, and in today's video, I'm going to be giving you guys my opinion on the best late game champions. So I just made a video on the best early game champions as well. If you guys haven't seen that one and you would like to, then I'll leave an annotation on screen as well as a link in the description below. So with that being said guys, let's get into this video. So last video, the best early game champion video, I started off with top lane. So for this video, I'm going to start off with support and then end with top lane. So my first pick for support is going to be Taric. Taric is a really good mid to late game champion because all of his abilities besides his ultimate scale off of armor or health. So the longer the game goes, the more HP and the more armor you're going to get as Taric, and then therefore the harder it's going to be to kill you and the stronger you're going to be. So Taric's win rate, it goes up quite a bit. At the 20 to 25 minute point, it's around like 50%, but once you get to the 30 to 35 minute point in the game, it goes up to like 56 or 57%, so that's pretty crazy. And if you are looking to play Taric right now, he is a very strong pick because he did just get the rework, so if he's not banned, I would definitely recommend playing him because he is a very strong scaling champion. So next up, my pick for AD carry is going to be Vayne. Vayne has always been one of the best late game champions, mainly because she does have that true damage on her W. Once the game goes to around the 30 to 35 minute point, a lot of champions are going to have their armor stacked and they're going to have their HP, and therefore a lot of the other carries are going to have a hard time dealing with that, even if they do get Last Whisper. Whereas Vayne, she does have that true damage on her W, so it just allows her to shred tanks once you get a few items on Vayne, and therefore if you can make it to the 30-35 minute point as Vayne, then you can definitely do really well as long as you know how to position correctly and you can kite well with Vayne. My pick for mid lane is Karthus. So the reason I have Karthus here is because once you do get 4 or 5 items on Karthus, the amount of damage you can do with one click of your R is really crazy. And if you're going up against an enemy team who's fairly squishy, let's say they've got like a Nidalee jungle, a Yasuo top lane, and they have an AD carry obviously, that's 3 squishy champions right there. So if you can make it to 35 minutes into the game as Karthus, you're gonna have a lot of AP, and you're going to be able to chunk those squishy targets down to around half HP with one ultimate. Once you do get a few items on him and you get Zhonya's as well, you can go really aggressive and you can just try to dive in on the team with your E active and you'll get a lot of AoE damage off. So as long as you can survive the early game as Karthus and you don't die for first blood or you don't die in the landing phase and you can farm up and get your items, then your late game is just going to be really strong. My pick for jungle is Amumu. So the sole reason I picked Amumu for my jungle pick is because he does have a very strong team fight. Most games are won or lost once you do get to that late game in team fights, and therefore if you are playing a good strong crowd control champion, then you're definitely going to be very effective once you reach the latter parts of the game. If you can get a nice AoE ultimate off with Amumu in a team fight and you can hit 3 or 4 enemies, then as long as your team does follow up, you're probably going to end up winning that team fight and you're just going to end up winning the game by getting good Amumu ultimates off. My pick for top lane is Nasus. So Nasus has always been one of the strongest scaling champions, mainly because of his Q stacks. Once you do get to late game and you have 500 stacks on Nasus, then you're going to deal so much damage while still being really tanky. I've always recommended Nasus if you're looking to climb the lower elos because a lot of players don't know how to abuse his weaker early game and they don't know how to counter him. So as long as you can farm up with Nasus in the early game, get your tank items, then you're going to be really effective once you do reach that late game. My honorable mention for support is going to be Braum. So Braum does have a very strong late game, mainly because he can get a lot of stuns off in teamfights due to his passive, and he can also soak a lot of damage because of his Unbreakable. If you can use your Unbreakable correctly in a late game teamfight, then you can just block so much damage for your team and you can peel for them really nicely. He also does have his ultimate and his Q, which are really good peel abilities, so he just keeps his AD carry really safe in those late game team fights. So if you're looking for a nice strong tank support, then I would play Braum for sure. And my honorable mention pick for AD carry is Twitch. So the reason I have Twitch here is because once you do reach 4 or 5 items on Twitch, and you know how to position well in teamfights, the amount of damage you can get off is just really good. He does have his ultimate, which increases his range as well as his attack damage, so that just allows him to sit back and spray the opponents down. As long as he does have some decent peel in teamfights, then he's gonna get a load of damage off if he knows how to position correctly. So as long as you can survive the early game with Twitch, then you're definitely going to be set up nicely to have a great mid to late game. My honorable mention for mid lane is Cassiopeia. So a lot of the mid lane mage champions are getting a rework either next patch or the patch after that, I forget when, but nevertheless Cassiopeia is supposed to be a really strong pick in the coming patches. If you haven't played a whole lot of her yet, then definitely practice her right now and get used to her. She is one of the harder mid lane champions to play, but the amount of damage you can get off with Cass in late game teamfights, if you can hit your poison, is really good. If you poison either a squishy target or even a tank, then the amount of damage you can get off with your E is really good because it's pretty much a machine gun. As long as you do have poison on that target, then you're gonna be able to continuously spam your E and get a lot of damage off. She does have her ultimate too, which is really nice for late game teamfights if you can use it correctly. My honorable mention pick for jungle is Xin Zhao. So Xin Zhao is a very good scaling champion. Even though Devour is getting removed next patch, he's going to be pretty strong with the new item that's replacing Devour. The new item is going to give you bonus, I think it's percentage health damage, so that's going to allow him to deal a lot of damage against tanks. And if he goes for an armor pen build, which is really good on Xin Zhao, then he's going to be really good in those mid to late game team fights. He does provide some pretty good peel for his team too with his ultimate, and he's a pretty simple champion to play. So if you're looking for a pretty strong jungler, to be honest, at all stages of the game, then I would pick up Xin Zhao for sure. And to round out this video, my honorable mention for top lane is Gangplank. So Gangplank has always been one of my favorite top lane picks. He's just a really rewarding champion if he can be played correctly. The amount of damage you can get off with your barrels in late game team fights is just really good. And if you know how to use your barrels correctly, then you can chunk squishy targets down to way below half HP by just hitting one barrel. And then if you have your ultimate up, you can just use your ultimate and finish them off after that. So if Gangplank can be played correctly, he is one of the strongest late game champions for sure. So that is going to be all for this video, guys. If you did enjoy, then be sure to drop a like and subscribe if you have not already. So thanks for watching, guys. Have an awesome day, and I will see you in my next video.